let's go ski the Vallée Blanche glacier and talk generally about what you can expect if you visit Chamonix. Skiing the Vallée Blanche, which involves a glacier, so you need a guide to make sure you don't fall in a crevasse. And you get there first by ascending to the Aiguille du Midi. Let's take a look from the apartment. The base of the tram is right here, and you take it all the way up there to the peak Aiguille du Midi, which means needle at midday or needle at noon. So this is Chamonix right here. I am staying right about here. So what I'll have to do is walk across Chamonix to here, the base of the Aiguille du Midi tram. You take it up here and then all the way over here. This is the peak where you ski or board down the backside. This is La Vallée Blanche. And then you come along this glacier all the way around to this point where you can't go any further. You have to take a little gondola up and then a train down back to the valley. But before we get into going up to Aiguille du Midi and skiing La Vallée Blanche, let's talk about one thing which I really don't like about Chamonix, and that's the layout. Let's take a look at the actual mountains to get a sense of what I view as Chamonix's problematic layout. I'm standing in the La Flagère part of the Chamonix ski area. La Flagère is connected to the Brevant part of the ski area, which is where my accommodations are at the base. Here is Aiguille du Midi. It's not on the Icon Pass. You have to buy a separate lift ticket to go up there and ski aboard the Vallée Blanche. Over here, you can see where the Vallée Blanche lets you out, followed by the train that takes you back downtown. All of that is covered by a separate pass from Chamonix. So what is part of the Chamonix ski area aside from Le Brevant and La Flagère? Well, all the way over to the left is the Baume, Le Tour, Vallee part of Chamonix. I don't know if you can see the lifts, but it's not connected. So even though I have as close as you can get to ski and ski out accommodations at the Brevant area, actually it's called Plan Praz, I'd have to drive 20 minutes by car or take a bus from the main town of Chamonix to get there. A little bit closer is the Grand Montet. It's a separate area too, not connected. It's about an 8-minute drive from Baume, Tour, Vallee, and 15 minutes from where I'm staying at Chamonix. But we're not done. All the way over to the right is Les Houches and Saint-Gervais. You can't even see them from where I'm standing. They're not connected to each other and they're a 10 to 15 minute drive away. Now, when I was at Les Trois Vallées or Teen Val d'Isère or Paradis Ski or Alberg in Austria or Dolomiti Super Ski in Italy, when I looked and saw lifts several mountain ranges over, guess what? They were connected. I could get there, and it was all on my same ski pass. So that's my main complaint about Chamonix. When you're coming to Europe to ski or board, why would you come to a resort that's so disjointed when there are so many others that aren't? Well, maybe the answer is because of all the awesome things I'm about to say about Chamonix, starting with us getting back to the Vallée Blanche. It's a straight 15-minute walk from my apartment to the base of the Aiguille du Midi tram where I meet the guide, Christophe. I have a car. I was thinking maybe I should drive it because I'm walking in ski boots and I'm gonna have to walk uphill on the way back. But it would take extra time to get the car out. I'm gonna have to pay for parking. It's gonna be a 5-minute walk to the parking lot from the base. Might as well just suck it up and do the walk. At least that's what I'm saying now. One great point about Chamonix is that the town is really well developed compared to other European ski resort towns. It's legit. There are over 5 grocery stores. Sure, they're all small, but still 5. There are name brand stores that you wouldn't associate with a ski resort town. And then there are very obvious winter sport brand stores that you would associate with a ski resort town. And then there are winter sport brand stores that you may never have heard of before, or at least I haven't heard of them. There's a mini pedestrian train that kids would love. And then just general craziness, which you don't find in a really small ski resort town. It's basically a significant urban environment with busy roads and even the other side of the tracks, at least what that would be in a ski town. So if you are or are with somebody who doesn't want to stay at a small, sleepy ski resort town, then Chamonix may be right for you. So as I kind of mentioned in the opening, if you want to ski or board La Vallée Blanche, you really need to get a guide. And the way you hire one is you go over to the Compagnie, La Compagnie for guides, which is right next to the church in Chamonix. You can walk in there and arrange for a guide, or you can do it online. They have a website. They have several different options. If you're alone, you could join a group. If you have your own group, you can just get a guide, or like me, you can just get a guide for yourself. Now the cost of a guide will range depending on the season and how many people you have, but expect somewhere between $200 on the low end and $500 if you get a guide just for yourself. So let's suppose you're at an apartment rental like me or a hotel doesn't have a shuttle. How do you get to the various different bases? Well, if you happen to have a car, driving and parking is an option. The parking at each base, or at least at Le Plan Praz, is cheaper than paid parking at US resorts. But really, is it that big of a deal? Because when you get back to my point about how separated the resorts of Chamonix are, when you drive and park at one of them, you're getting a small amount of terrain. If you go to Breckenridge and pay 3 times the price for parking, you're getting far more terrain for what you're paying. What a lot of people end up doing is walking uphill often, carrying their skis in their ski boots. I guess at a certain point you get used to it, but that's kind of a pain. You'll need to get to the base of the Aiguille du Midi tram. Typically, that's where you'll meet your guide the morning of your excursion. Now, like I mentioned earlier, if you have the Icon Pass, guess what? It doesn't cover the Aiguille du Midi tram. So if you're gonna do the Vallée Blanche, you have to buy an extra ticket, which will cost 83 euros. At least that's what it costs right now. There are reserved times for the tram, so you can't just go whenever you want. You'll get a specific time, and that's when you have to show up. My guide's name was Christophe. He was so awesome. We had a great time together. He spoke English, obviously, but I spoke French as well, so we ended up speaking most of the time in French, except when my mind got tired and I struggled, and he would break out his English. So we met at the base of the tram, and when your reservation time hits, you board the tram and you take it up. There are actually 2, so you get off the first one and switch to the second. Chamonix has great variety in restaurants. I think much better than you'd find in a village at Tignes or Villetea, maybe even Zermatt. It's France, so you'll obviously have a lot of French restaurants, cafes, really creative dessert spots. But even without looking, I found 1 Chinese restaurant, 1 Japanese restaurant, and an Indian restaurant with 2 different locations. How's that for variety? When you get to the top and off the tram, you can see everybody congregating, putting on all their safety gear. You typically have a harness, a beacon in case there's an avalanche, and crampons for your boots. Now, when I did it 15 years ago, it didn't seem this regulated. Only 1 in our group had crampons on, and we just carried our skis in our hand. Pretty much everybody now attaches their skis to their backpack so they don't have to hold them and their hands are free. Once you've got all your safety gear on, you head out and walk down towards the ski area. Now, the walk is what is really awesome about this, because it looks like a bunch of people are taking their lives into their own hands just to go ski on a glacier. On either side, it looks like an extreme cliff that you could just slip and fall down to your death. Now, obviously, there is danger, which is why you have safety gear. You'll be tied to your guide and the other people in your group. Christophe and I were tied together. You'll be holding onto a rope. But when you're actually making the walk, it's a lot less precarious than it seems when you're looking at it from afar. It's wide enough that the snow conditions may vary. When we were doing it, it was just some loose snow, so it wasn't that icy. But as Christophe pointed out, sometimes it is sheer ice. So you definitely need crampons, because you never know what the conditions are going to be. In my opinion, that's definitely a highlight of the whole experience, that walk. So how do you get to Chamonix? Well, you'll fly into Geneva, and it's no more difficult getting to Chamonix than it is getting to Les Trois Vallées, Les Arcs, La Plagne, or any other major European resort accessible from Geneva. You can rent a car, take a private transfer, or a shared transfer. There are buses, but note that a shared transfer or bus will likely drop you off at a random spot in town, and you'll have to walk or take a taxi to your accommodations from there. Now, when you get down to the ski area, you take off your crampons and suit up, which does not mean you take off your harness or your beacon. You have to leave those on, because there is danger when you ski La Vallée Blanche. There are crevasses. That's why you go with a guide, to make sure you don't slip into one, but you never know what can happen. So how good a skier or boarder do you have to be to do La Vallée Blanche? Well, good news is intermediate or above. There is a point, at least both times that I did it, where there are some bumps. So an intermediate might struggle a little bit with that, but it's no different than going down a black slope with bumps. So Christophe told me to stay behind him at all times, which any good guy will tell you to do, and we were off. All the different resorts that make up Chamonix have some incredible terrain. It's European above the tree line skiing, so there are countless options to get down the mountain. You can find chutes and other really cool features, all within skiable and boardable terrain. It has some great lines, particularly if you want to hike, to find them. To my surprise, even though it's spring skiing conditions in Chamonix right now, there was fresh powder up there, and we found it, untracked. It was so awesome. I was not expecting that at all. The cool
cool thing is that even though I last went 15 years ago, I remembered a lot of it. Christophe has been in Chamonix for decades, and he pointed out how the glacier has changed a lot over time. But honestly, in the moment when I would look around, I would recognize things, but I couldn't tell if they were different because I hadn't recently looked at the pictures from 15 years ago. All right, for those of you who are from North America, the Icon Pass works at Chamonix. And what comes with it being an Icon Pass resort, if you care, is that there are a lot of Americans. I hear American or Canadian English on the slopes, on the chairlifts, in the town, in my apartment building. It's everywhere. So that may be something that gives you comfort if you don't speak French. There are plenty of English speakers here. But if you're somebody who wants to come and ski and board Europe and feel like you're in Europe, you may feel less so here. There were times where Christophe would warn me, go very slowly here and follow precisely in my tracks. And he could point out where there are some crevasses that we were skiing in between.
And of course, they have a whole variety of hotels, including a La Folie Douce hotel. If you know anything about the après-ski scene in Europe, you know that La Folie Douce has a crazy scene. They're located at multiple resorts, Val Thorens, Val d'Isère, Les Arcs. Who knew that they also had hotels? And one of them is right here in Chamonix. As cool as that may be, there is no après-ski scene right now at 3 p.m. when there usually is at their other clubs, so maybe it'll pick up later. 3 hours later, the après-ski scene at La Folie Douce has picked up, but it's still not at the level of après-ski scenes at other resorts, so that's one thing to know about Chamonix. On the other hand, if you like a subdued après-ski scene, then it may be your scene.
When we hit the bump section, which was there 15 years ago, Christophe told me to take it very easy and follow behind him because there sometimes are crevasses within the bumps, so you needed to be very careful there. Don't treat it like a regular bump run at a resort and just try and tear through it. There is one point in the excursion where if you traverse over to the left, there's a building, a refuge that you could go and have lunch at and just hang out. We did that 15 years ago, but of course I didn't have time to do that, so we didn't bother. So I'm just going to interrupt you for a second and say, look, if you're going to go and do the Vallée Blanche, you could actually request Christophe. I'm going to put his information in the description below so you can contact him there. But he was a great guy. He put up with me stopping, taking off my helmet to change camera positions all the time. And check this out. He likes to paint. That's a hobby of his. He showed me some of his paintings of the landscape here in Chamonix. And I was like, what, that's a painting? It looks like a photograph to me. As they say in France, c'était vachement impressionnant. So check the forecast, because if it's going to be a foggy day or a cloudy day, you may not want to go on that day. The views are so much nicer with a clear blue sky. So we eventually stopped right in front of the glacier. This big blue ice, which was so incredible to be so close to. Now, Christophe pointed out that some parts of the glacier move forward about a meter a day. Other parts move forward only maybe a centimeter a day, constantly in motion. So the very end of the excursion is pretty flat. Snowboarders may want to think about bringing some poles because you might get kind of caught there, but it wasn't so flat that you would come to a complete stop, even on skis. And at the very end was one of the big changes from 15 years ago. Back then, we had to walk up maybe 5 flights of stairs to a little gondola that would take you to the train to go back down to Chamonix. The glacier has receded so much that now you'd have to walk up maybe 15 to 20 flights of stairs. They had to bring the gondola down because that's too much to walk. So La Vallée Blanche was the unexpected highlight of my time in Chamonix this year. I'd highly recommend trying it because it's something you'll remember for the rest of your life. And the great bonus at the end was that Christophe and I grabbed a drink and he drove me back, so I didn't have to make the walk all the way back uphill with my skis and boots to my apartment rental. Merci bien, Christophe.
Don't let go. Chasing a dream.